All right, welcome everyone to Focus on Finance. Thank you all so much for making it today. I'm Rachel Wang, the founder and executive director of Girls for Business, and we're super excited to have you at GFB's 10th virtual event to learn more about the world of finance and investing. Now I'll pass it off to Sophia.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sophia. I'm one of the co-founders and director of operations here at Girls for Business, and we're so excited to see everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us. And a special thank you to our wonderful panelists, Lauren Reisenhuber, Sanjana Prapala, Nicole Beck, Amy Wen, and Sylvia Blunt for speaking today. Now I'll pass it on to Angelica, the co-director of Outreach at Girls for Business and the host of today's event.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Angelica Food and I'm a co-director of Outreach at Girls for Business. Again, thank you all so much for joining us today and we're so excited to see everyone. So I hope you've all been having an amazing weekend and I know it's back to school season. So I hope everyone's excited. If you're already in school, going back to school, hope you're having a great end of your summer. So just so we know who's here and to warm up a little bit for today's event, could everyone type your name, grade, and where you're from in the chat? So I actually start school tomorrow, so I'm not officially a junior yet, but I'm a rising junior in high school from Maryland. And yeah, thank you all for coming out. Thank you so much to our panelists. And thank you so much to everyone who's in like different time zones. If you're waking up early or if you're, taking time out of lunch or something to attend, thank you so much for coming. Yeah, we love to see a lot of people from Maryland, Girls for Business. Most of our directors and members are actually in Maryland or California, I think. So super excited to see you guys here. And yeah, shout out to any middle schoolers here. I saw some of you guys on the RSVP form who are taking an early interest in business and finance. That's super impressive. And we're so glad you could join us. All right, I think I can get started introducing our event. So today at our Focus on Finance event, we hope to educate, inspire, and empower all middle and high school girls in pursuing a business pathway and exploring the areas of entrepreneurship, finance, and management. So we've invited 6 highly experienced business professional and student speakers with a range of different financial and entrepreneurial experiences. Our panelists will introduce and discuss financial management in the business field, offer advice to aspiring entrepreneurs, and also answer questions from the audience while sharing their unique business journeys. So we're so excited for our amazing panelists to share their diverse experiences with you all today. Sort of as like a preface, one of our panelists today, you might have seen on our Instagram and LinkedIn, Smiti, she couldn't make it today, unfortunately, but we still have 5 of our other panelists here to share their journeys with you. So here on this slide, we have a full rundown of today's event structure. First, I'll be briefly introducing our organization, Girls for Business, if you're not familiar with it, and sharing our initiatives with you all. Our wonderful panelists will then be introducing themselves more and sharing their general experiences and journeys in business. And then we'll segue into the main portion of our event, which is our panel discussion, where panelists will offer deeper insights on their different journeys throughout high school and throughout college and in their professional careers based on the topics and questions you guys have sent us through the event RSVP form. We'll also give you guys the chance to ask questions live during the discussion. And finally, we'll wrap up the event at around 4:55 Eastern Standard Time with panelist contact information. And if you have further questions for anyone on the team or any panelists, how to reach out to them, as well as how to get involved with our organization and future events. So without further ado, a little bit more about our organization, Girls for Business. So I didn't get the slide. Okay. Girls for Business is a student-led nonprofit organization that's dedicated to empowering girls interested in exploring business career pathways. Established last year in June 2020 and composed of a team of 120 plus members, Girls for Business has impacted thousands of girls worldwide through its platforms. So since business education is scarcely touched upon in the school curriculum, our mission is to encourage girls in grades 6 through 12 who are interested in exploring a business pathway by providing them with ample business education resources. So by providing free mentorship programs, business news, educational virtual events, and engaging resources, our team hopes to create a platform where girls can find business guidance and establish strong connections with like-minded young women. So currently our team is starting up our 4th cycle of the Girls for Business Mentorship program, which is a 10-week program that offers girls in grades 6 through 12 the opportunity to study under experienced undergrad students who are seasoned in the business field. If you want to learn more about how to get involved, more information will be shared at the end. And Girls for Business also publishes bi-weekly business newsletters that feature the latest news in business, valuable career tips, business opportunities and internships, and exclusive interviews with professional business individuals and more. So going on to the next slide, Girls for Business has 3 essential programs: our business mentorship program, our business resource program, and our business networking program. Sorry, I think that was not supposed to be the next slide. I think we were still on the last slide, my bad. But the business mentorship program, we've provided free business mentorship to over 120 student mentees. And our resource program releases bi-weekly business newsletters with educational resources and business news. So the Girls for Business initiative has impacted over 60 countries all across the globe, and we've accumulated over 4,000 followers on our social media platforms. So super amazing. And thank you to all of you who support our organization and come out to these events, follow our newsletters, and just support us. So slide 7, I think, next slide now. I'm so excited to pass it on to our one of our outreach coordinators to welcome our panelists.
Hi, I'm Eileen, and I am an outreach coordinator at Girls Business. And today you will be hearing from Reisenhuber, Sanjana Palpala, Nicole Beck, Amy Lynn, and Sylvia Blunt.
Yep, and our panelists will be introducing themselves and sharing their general experiences a little more in the next few slides so you can all get to know them. So we'll start with Lauren, I think, and we'll go in the order that I'll type out in the chat right now. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Lauren. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Reisenhuber. I am a junior at Northwestern University, studying neuroscience with a minor in business. A lot of my background is healthcare related. So in high school, I worked at several hospitals in the Texas, New York area and in Argentina. And this past summer, I worked in the healthcare group at Goldman Sachs in the investment banking division, and I will be returning there again next summer as a summer analyst as well.
Thank you, Lauren. Now we'll pass it on to
Hey everyone, I'm Sanjana and I'm a senior at NYU studying finance and data science. On campus, I'm pretty involved with Stern's private equity group, NYU Hyperloop, NYU CubeSat, as well as the Gold Standard, which is Stern's newspaper. In my previous internships, I worked in wealth management and at Merrill Lynch and private accounting operations at PGIM Investments. However, this past summer, I had the opportunity to work as a generalist investment banking summer analyst at Guggenheim Partners, and I will be going back there full-time after graduation.
Great, thank you so much. And now we'll pass it on to, I think, Nicole. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole. I am a senior at SMU, and I'm majoring in finance. I have a minor in history, and then actually now in European studies as well, as of like a few days ago. But on campus, I have been involved in a student-run investment group called BIG, Boulevard Investment Group, which is kind of what got a lot of my interest in finance, not really going, but help me see where I wanted to direction that kind of throughout college. So on top of that, on school, I am involved in a leadership scholar group and then also Greek life. So my past summer, I spent in New York at Moelis & Company working as an investment banking analyst in their capital markets group. I will be going back full-time after I graduate in December. And prior internship experience has included oil and gas investment banking in Houston at Stifel, and also equity research at Vista Equity Partners. I was also a Girls Who Invest summer intensive scholar, which is how I got involved with Vista and still has kind of continued to have an impact going forward.
Thank you. Now we'll pass it on to Amy.
Sure. Hi all, I am a senior at the University of Texas at Austin. I am a business honors and finance major. So my experience in terms of my career, my summer after my sophomore year, I was also part of Girls Who Invest. So I was in the same class as Nicole. And so we did that together. And my internship was at Macquarie Infrastructure and Real Assets. And I had no idea what that was, but it's apparently the largest infrastructure firm in the world. So I thought that was really cool to work at. Never had been exposed to it before. Really liked the job, really liked the team. So decided to return, and then recently also signed to return for full time. So I also on campus run a startup called Thousand Thread, which promotes sustainable fashion, and it's like a location-based clothing rental platform. And so we have an application development. I also am the careers director at Macomb School of Business, so kind of oversee like case competitions and company field trips, all that good stuff. And then another thing that I'm really excited about is in a couple of years, I will be headed off to Harvard Law School. Got in through their junior deferral program. So we'll probably study something along the lines of like law and policy for healthcare. So really excited about that.
Great, thank you so much, Amy. And then we'll pass it on to our final panelist, Sylvia Blum.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm Sylvia Blunt. I'm an Associate Director at Bartico Investment Bank. I've been in the industry of investment banking for about 5 years, and I focus on private placements and buy-side M&A for middle market transactions. Typically, I'd say between $10 million all the way up to $500 million. I can go below or higher than that on a case-by-case basis. And I focus on TMT and a little bit of my experience in consumer staples and consumer products. And I've done a couple of deals in the energy space as well. I am also FINRA Series 79 and 63 licensed, and I have a TikTok page as well. You're welcome to check out.
Great, thank you so much to all of our panelists. And so we'll be, now that everyone's introduced themselves a bit, we'll be transitioning to our panel discussion where everyone will delve deeper into their personal and professional experiences and unique perspectives. So I think if we can take the screen share down just so everyone can see the speakers. We'll first be starting off with a couple of the most frequently asked questions and requested topics from you guys in the RSVP form. So to any of our speakers, if any question speaks to you particularly throughout the discussion, please feel free to chime in. So let me pull up our most frequently asked question to all of our panelists was, why did they choose finance from all the other fields in business? And anyone feel free to start and then popcorn off to wherever you'd like.
I'd be happy to start. So I definitely, going into college, I had an idea that finance is something that interested me, partially through, people in my family or family friends who said, hey, you'd be really interested in this. It kind of seemed like a good direction to go. And it seemed like you had a lot of flexibility going into a finance program where if I potentially found I didn't like it, I could kind of move around, but which I do still find to be the case. I find it's far easier within college to start off on a finance track and then reframe your priorities rather than the other way around. But something for me that made me say, I want to stick with finance, this is what I like, was partially, interest in what was being taught in my classes, but more than what I liked about the actual content was that I kind of liked how it made me feel. I like that having that knowledge kind of under my belt and being able to use it practically or, in a job sense as well was something that felt empowering in a way that other subjects that were also of, intellectual interest to me, for example, like history, I speak German, things like that, that kind of get me inspired in a different way, didn't translate to the same feeling of empowerment and I think confidence. I think that, developing my knowledge within this area and also kind of being able to assert yourself in a way and feel like you know what you're doing, or that you don't know what you're doing, but it's okay because you feel confident. I think it has definitely inspired a lot of confidence for me, and it's my favorite thing about it.
I guess I can go next. So I've already been in the industry for quite some time. So I kind of started finance about 7 years ago, but I was a business management major when I started my my bachelor's degree, and I was actually randomly put into finance major for it was just a administrative mistake, but then I kind of stuck with it, and I definitely enjoy those courses, the classes much better than my other, more marketing or management related type of classes, and thought there was definitely a great opportunity for especially women in finance and growing, more and more, and seeing more women being involved in finance related type of careers, type of roles. And I saw definitely a great opportunity, something that could kind of different compared to a few other of my peers. So I thought from the beginning was pretty interesting.
I'm happy to go next. I think my background is a little bit different than the traditional pathway into finance. I came to Northwestern as a pre-med student, still studying neuroscience. And as I mentioned, I had several internships in hospitals when I was in high school. And so I didn't really have a strong interest in finance when I came to Northwestern, but I knew it was important to get a well-rounded education. And I had inclinations to some business fields generally. And so I joined some different business clubs at school. I joined AK Psi, business fraternity, and women in business. And from those clubs, I connected with mentors at Northwestern who, through conversations with them, kind of encouraged me to look into different banking opportunities that were out there for rising sophomores. And so after my freshman year, I started looking a lot more into banking, as well as consulting and other career paths that touched healthcare. So I was specifically looking at healthcare consulting or healthcare investment banking. And the investment banking recruitment cycle is the earliest one. And so I went through that and ended up landing that role after a lot of like networking and research and just conversations with people in the industry. From all of that, learned that I thought it would be a great fit for me, and definitely combined my strong interest in finance with my healthcare background as well. And so I think that's definitely a different than normal introduction to finance. But I think if there's anything you're passionate about, whether it be healthcare or something else, investment banking and finance generally touches every industry. And so there's definitely a way to get involved in finance, regardless of what your other passions might be.
I can go next. So personally, like when I first entered college, I didn't really know like which specific career area and business I wanted to focus on. And so what I liked about finance was that it would kind of be useful regardless of the specific career choice that I went into, simply because I think the subject is pretty diverse, and so there are many applications. And as I've continued to take courses, I've learned more about like fintech, entrepreneurial finance, and valuation, which are all sub branches within finance. And so I just think it's a great basis of knowledge to have.
Sure. And I guess I'll go last. I resonated with a lot of these answers. Like Sanjana, like I didn't really know what I wanted to do either. Just heard about how like general finance could be. But I never thought like I could like work in high finance, because I actually have like a story that I tell a lot of people, and it's that my aunt, she's like, Amy, like go work on Wall Street. Like there's a lot of money there. And my mind immediately went to like the movie, like Wolf on Wall Street or whatever. And that's a terrible movie. It really does not depict like what should be happening. And it's a lot of misogynistic like tropes and just like really toxic culture. So there was like no way I was ever going to go work on Wall Street. But then I saw like Girls Who Invest, and I would be able to get a paid internship without an interview. So I was like, all right, like let's do that. Like this sounds like the easiest way to get an internship as a sophomore. So I feel like I kind of fell more into it than actually like chose it myself. And if you find yourself doing that too, like that's completely all right, as long as you're not hating what you're doing. So I also think that there is like a really big aspect of doing like tangible actions, like making really big decisions, like putting large sums of money and moving it around in this world. And so there's a lot of, I think, power involved in that. Not that I'm like power hungry or whatever, but there needs to be more women making those decisions. So that also really factored into why I wanted to go into finance. I wanted to be more of a part of that movement of giving some power to women and also being able to like bring women into the industry. So more fell into it than actually chose it, but I'm happy with what I fell into.
Thank you guys. It was really interesting to hear how you guys all came into finance in such a different way. This kind of ties into this next question. What's your advice to young girls getting into accounting, finance, or financial management industry? And what should they do to make sure they are heading onto the right path?
Yeah, so I would say that most people probably think that if you want to enter in finance, you really need a lot of good math skills or quantitative analysis type of skills. But honestly, well, it depends also on what kind of field you want to get into finance. But I would say that as you get started in most fields in finance, financial management or wealth management or even investment banking, I would say that communication skills and the ability to build relationship is way more important compared to math skills, totally 100%. And as you grow also with the firm, definitely you need those kind of skills, especially from my experience in investment banking. If you want to really move up in the firm, you have to be able. So definitely the ability to find clients and to talk to people is a lot more important than building models and things of that sort. Obviously, again, as you start your career, you will have to do that kind of groundwork and building models and work with numbers. But definitely that's something to keep in mind for if you see yourself moving up, and working in the finance field.
I would say going off of that a little bit, if you're talking about the actual path to say land an investment banking internship or be able to get into XYZ program after college, that's something that you will be walked through, very specifically when you do get into college. For us, there's a very specific, recruiting cycle, like take these classes for this, take this course, this is when interviews will start, blah, blah, blah. Like it's a very specific and kind of rigid process, but it also shifts year to year. So I don't think it would be helpful to you guys to tell me, for me to tell you what my investment banking recruiting experience was in terms of timeline, because that will be different for you guys. It's early, but I would say in the meantime, stay on top of your courses, make sure you're connected with the resources that will give you that timeline and make sure you know what you need to know, but you will be herded in that direction most likely. I know that I definitely was a bit, but kind of going off of what Sylvia just said, I think that, I haven't been working full-time. I will eventually. I'm not there in my career. I'm still in college, but something I've noticed for sure is that, going with people skills, a big part of that is kind of being humble and being happy to take on whatever. You land some big job, you get to work at some big investment bank, you're on Wall Street, you're still not, you're only as important as you can help other people and be able to contribute. Your job is really to make other people's jobs easier and to, kind of help other people look good. And they will be happy to help you. They'll go out of your time to help you learn concepts, to help you actually kind of develop more, I don't want to say intellectually, but even material wise, if you're there to be humble, work hard, and kind of help your team. I think it's very team oriented rather than individually focused. Again, despite what you might see on Wolf of Wall Street, which is not an investment bank, by the way, just heads up, Wall Street usually means investment banks. Wolf of Wall Street, that is not about an investment bank. So do not be worried.
Yeah, I would definitely echo what Sylvia and Nicole both just said. I think communication skills and being humble and honestly just like people skills and your personality in general is very important and not talked about as frequently. I think in finance in general, there's such a large emphasis on modeling and math, but really your people skills and your ability to connect is equally, if not more important. I would say throughout my interview process, getting to know people at the bank through networking calls was super important because you also want to make sure that you end up somewhere that's a good cultural fit for you. So getting to know the people is super important for me, especially something that I cared a lot about was making sure that the group I ended up in had a good number of women who I could look to as role models. And I was very fortunate to find that and had several women in the healthcare group who were always willing to chat with me, talk about anything that I was hesitant about, and just learn from them. They were all very, very inspiring. And another thing I would say along the same lines is to not be intimidated. I think it sometimes feels like you need to know everything and all these technical guides, but you really don't need to know everything. Like I think if you get an internship, everyone who has one is there for a reason, and everyone is equally deserving. And if you're there, just like work hard and be humble, exactly like what Nicole was saying, ask as many questions as possible. The majority of people are so willing and even eager to help you and teach you. So take advantage of the fact that there are so many mentors out there, which obviously all of you are. If you're here in this meeting right now as middle school and high schoolers, you're so far ahead of the curve. But yeah, I think mentorship is really, really critical to success in finance in general.
Just to add to something that hasn't been said before, echoing like what everyone said, but then also there's like a lot of women's programs at banks and other like PE shops and buy side things, which are like hedge funds. There's a lot of like women's programs that you can apply to as like a sophomore or freshman, and they'll like take you in, they'll mentor you, they'll teach you about what their firm does, even if you don't know very much about it. And then that normally expedites you to giving you like a final round interview or super day, as they call it in the industry. So that's another way that you could get in.
I think pretty much everything's been covered, but in terms of the people skills that are really critical, personally, like Guggenheim is very, very focused on culture fit when it comes to giving out internship offers and also full-time offers. And so I personally, I don't think it's too early for you guys to start practicing those people skills, like learning how to work together, staying humble. Like you can practice that in your everyday life in the classroom. So it's never too late to start early, but yeah.
Great, thank you all so much for answering that question. I think we have another one that was, I think we have a few minutes before we start opening up live questions. So to our event attendees, you guys can start thinking about questions you want to ask, and then at around 4:30 or maybe a few minutes after, we'll start taking questions from the chat, or you can just speak out and ask your questions. We have one more that was really asked. I'm going to combine a few questions that people really want to know about. So what are some like challenges that you faced or some mistakes that you made in the business field, and how have you overcome them, as well as what advice would you give to people interested in entering the financial or even entrepreneurial, for those of you who are entrepreneurs, those fields in business?
I would say that, kind of continue the conversation from what has been said so far. I would say that, again, probably in my experience, I would have tried to network even more to get to, to be working investment banking, and, always ask questions, even if you think that might be stupid questions, when you're working with the team at your firm, or even while networking. I think that there are no really stupid questions, and it also shows that you're very interested in the field, and you're passionate about your future career. And so definitely, probably I would have, looking back, used to be kind of shy to ask questions to my mentors, but definitely now I see it that it's definitely a good thing to think about and do to grow as a professional.
Just to echo the point that Sylvia made, yeah, definitely don't be afraid to ask questions, and just kind of make sure you just put yourself out there and be outgoing, because at the end of the day, even the professionals you're talking to, or the mentors that you're talking to, they're still people. I'm sure they're very nice. And so just talk to them, and I'm sure you'll get all the help you need, and you'll be able to have a great conversation with
them. I would say be an action-oriented person. And that just means like, don't wait around for the right time to do something, like if that's what you want to do. So a few examples that I have that I think has led me to be very like proud of my own accomplishments, and others to be very proud of them too. It's just first, like I do have like a startup at school, and me and my co-founder, like none of us knew how to code. So we literally just created like a minimal viable product on Instagram and ran that for like a couple of months, and we were like pretty successful. So right there, that was like market validation. Another thing that, you know, that was very like action oriented for me was I saw a problem in my school, and then of like not having like pads and tampons in the restroom. And my friend, she started her period and she was like running around the school, like just asking girls for like pads because there weren't any in the bathroom. And she came back to her laptop, and the professor was like, Shivani, like, why did you leave? You shouldn't have left. Why did you turn your camera off? And she wasn't going to say in front of the entire like class like what had happened to her. So right there, I was like, why don't we have pads and tampons? I went to Target, I bought some, and I put them in the restroom. And I called the school out on Instagram for not having them. And then turns out that they're going to start having them. So I would just say, like, if you see a problem, like, go for it, fix it. It lets you, you know, gain a lot of things that not only that you can put on your resume, but just like accomplishments that you can say you're proud of at the end of the day.
I think that's incredible. That's really, really cool. I remember being astonished this summer being at work and seeing pads and tampons in the bathroom. So hopefully there will be a day when that's not the case. But one thing that I think ties into a lot of these things, but it's kind of its own as well. I think when you start a new position, whether that be in a group at school, in class, or especially in an internship or a job, it takes a little bit of time to establish trust that you know what you're doing and how to get there. And so in the meantime, if you do ask those questions, one, you know, you can show, okay, my questions have progressed from this rudimentary level to, okay, I have this understanding, this is where I am now. Kind of over communicating in that sense, I think helps develop clarity and build that trust. Going off of that, something that I definitely struggled with a bit is I can be very ambitious in my ability to get things done in a certain time frame that is just not realistic for me. And so something I was told at the beginning of my summer was, you know, if someone asks you to do something, give them the time frame that you'll have it done, but then multiply that by 1.5 so that you know, you have time to do it quality wise, and kind of ties into the whole under promise over deliver. You don't want to be known as a person who turns things in late. And if you are running behind on something, just communicate this came up. Where are we kind of figuring out how to juggle those priorities? But yeah, things, at least for me, but I know for a lot of people, take a little bit longer than you think. And that can have a lot to do with building your trust and kind of building yourself up.
All right, thank you so much, everyone, for answering that question. And since we're around halfway through our event discussion time, we wanted to open up the floor to live question from our attendees. We actually have Lauren, who has a live question. I think she mentioned she's from Florida, so we're spotlighting her to ask you guys a question.
Thank you for introducing me. So this question is directed at Lauren. Earlier, you mentioned that you are a member of a business fraternity. Can you explain what that is exactly?
Yeah, definitely. So Northwestern has 2 business fraternities, I believe, and they're basically just business clubs. They're co-ed, so it's not actually like a quote unquote fraternity, but it is basically a mentorship program where you come in as a class. I think my group had 25 members as a freshman, and it was kind of an intense interview process, similar to what you would go through in interviews for an actual internship, but for a club at school, which was kind of strange to me as a freshman. But you go through that process, and then 25 members-ish are accepted. And it's basically you're just mentored by upperclassmen at the school who are in that club. And they walk you through a lot of the behavioral and technical skills that you might need, whether you're going into finance or consulting or marketing. Northwestern's business club or business fraternities are very general. So you can, if you have a specific interest in any of those fields, like finance, for example, you will mostly meet with upperclassmen who have prior internship experience or are going to work full-time in finance. And so it's a great way to connect with people and learn from them. They'll help you with things like your resume, interviewing skills, just a lot of that basic content that's super useful going through the recruitment process, regardless of what industry you're looking at. Does that answer your question?
It does. And then a quick follow-up to that. So can anyone from any undergraduate college at Northwestern go through the interview process to be in the fraternity?
What do you mean by any undergraduate major?
Yes, so like Northwestern has different undergraduate colleges like Medill, Weinberg. So anyone from
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So anyone at Northwestern is eligible to apply. There's everyone from different majors. So like I think the majority is probably econ majors, but I'm a neuroscience major, so it's definitely possible to get in from a variety of majors. In fact, they really try to recruit people from a bunch of different backgrounds.
And I'm actually in a different business fraternity. I think I saw on your slide that you're in AK Psi. I'm in DSP, which is a different one. I'm frankly not super involved in it, but my school has both. And the one that I'm in, you do have to be a business major or want to pursue a business career. If you are not at all in anything business related and you want to join, then you cannot. So it depends on the school, but and sorry, not the school, it depends on the specific fraternity. For example, the one that Lauren mentioned is at my school. It's at a lot of different schools, but the bylaws are the same regardless of what school you're at.
All right, thank you so much. If there's no other answers, I think Rachel, you can take Lauren off the spotlight, and thank you for asking a question. We're having a few more live questions coming in through the chat, so let me just go up. I think the first one we have is from Valeria, who asks, what type of math is mostly used for a finance major?
Like elementary school math, not really like calculus, not really dealing with algebra, maybe a little algebra, but mostly like interest rates and stuff. Those are like raising things to the exponents and multiplying things. Not too complicated for math.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, unless you want to be in a more of a quantitative role, let's say more of a for a hedge fund, if you're interested in quantitative analysis, then probably you need to get a little more advanced skills. But for example, investment banking, it would be anything related to financial statements, kind of math and analysis, or how to calculate the discount rate. But again, it's pretty simple math.
Great, thank you so much, guys. Going on to the next question. I think we had a few also from the RSVP form similar to this. So are there any courses or clubs or extracurriculars that you did in high school or younger, maybe before college, that you think helped you discover your interest? Or if there aren't any like specific things you can recall, what would you recommend for girls that age to do to start becoming more involved if they want to head into the business or finance fields?
I would say reading the news is a super important thing to do. I wasn't in any business specific clubs in high school, but I think just being well educated, reading like, I don't know, the Wall Street Journal or Morning Brew is a great resource as well, just to kind of familiarize yourself with the language. That's the best thing that I could think of at that age.
I think that that's great advice. I know that I in high school was, my dad would always say, read the Wall Street Journal. And I was like, no, that's scary. I don't get it. And it's, you'll be fine. You can do it. But I think something else that's really helpful is, I know we all come from different backgrounds where, I know some people who all of their parents and all their friends are in the medical field or whatever. A lot of people kind of run in circles of similar careers. But if you have any friends whose parents maybe have some sort of background in business or finance, or any alumni maybe from your school, if you look around on LinkedIn, see who graduated and went to a finance program, finding people who are either a little bit older, who you might know personally, or through a friend of a friend, who have some experience there and can give you insight on what their career has looked like, or just other people who are graduates of your high school. That can be a really good way to just kind of feel things out. If you reach out to someone and say, hey, I saw your background is XYZ, I'm interested in learning about this, they will, I would say 99 out of 100 times say yes and want to talk to you. And so I think getting a feel from even people who you're not specifically trying to network with can be a really great resource.
Yeah, definitely. I also wanted to add and agree with Lauren, because following the news and trying to get a feel for the market, how that the stock market works, for example, I think it's very interesting and important for your future career if you're interested in a finance career. And for example, I recently, well, starting from this year, I implemented a daily newsletter for our interns and also analysts, and so I already noticed the difference. When they also maybe shadow client calls or other meetings and trainings, now they kind of following the market with that newsletter type of thing, or maybe reading other articles, etc. I already noticed that they're much more well versed in the field. So definitely that's very important.
Well, if there's no other answers, we're going to take the next question from the chat, which is from our own founder and executive director, Rachel. When working in finance, how does your work intersect with other career industries?
I can take this one. Well, for example, working in investment banking, and let's say that you focus on a specific industry or sector, definitely you will come across many different types of careers and, again, other way to do things in different fields. So I think that's also very unique about investment banking. Will be exposed to not only the finance side, understanding the financial statements and things of that sort, but also if you represent a company in the healthcare sector, or say an entertainment company, then you'll definitely get exposure to those fields as well, and you'll be able to kind of understand how different companies in different fields and sectors operate. And I think that's very unique about specifically investment banking. Then if you guys have other experiences in different fields.
Sure. I work in a private infrastructure private equity shop. So basically what that means is that they have like all this money and then they invest it into different infrastructure assets. So like power and utilities, data centers, also like multifamily homes, which are just apartment buildings. So right there, like the assets that are invested in, like those are other industries, right? And so you're doing finance for infrastructure industries. Lauren is working in healthcare, so like that's also like an automatic sort of intersection there. So there's a lot of different ways that finance intersects with all the different industries.
I think also Sylvia talked about how investment banks often have sector groups that you can join. For example, if you have a healthcare interest, healthcare group, you might have like a fintech interest, join the FIG group. But my internship this summer was actually instead of a sector group, it was a product group. So that's also an opportunity. For example, some companies, most will have like an M&A group, mergers and acquisitions. So that's like combining or separating companies. I was in the capital markets group. So I worked on this summer a lot of SPAC deals, but normally there are a lot of different, structured or combined like private or public debt and equity products. Pretty much it covers all sorts of products, but within a wide variety of industries. So this summer I got to work on live deals that included everything from like Israeli healthcare to men's grooming to people I've seen on Shark Tank to music publishing to celebrity focused SPACs. Like there was a lot of really, really cool stuff that I got to work on that just spanned all sorts of things that I never thought I would have known, even crypto, energy. So if you know that you are interested in being a generalist in terms of the actual work, or I'm sorry, more over the sector exposure you'll have, that's very much an opportunity. And a lot of companies also give you the opportunity to kind of differentiate yourself. I know one person at my company, back when cannabis was something a little bit taboo, but seemed to be rising within, business opportunities. One person just differentiated themselves, and I'm going to learn a bunch about cannabis from an industry perspective. And now that's a major focus of our gaming and lodging group. So you have the opportunity in a lot of places to differentiate yourself once that interest comes up too, which I think is really cool.
All right, thank you all so much for answering that question. We have another live question from Valeria, who I think mentioned she's joining from South Korea. She asked, what type of careers can you pursue with a degree in finance?
Well, finance is definitely a broad field, broad sector, so you can pursue many different careers, including investment banking, and also within investment banking you can pursue many different careers, because you could be more, as Nicole said, capital market side, so more in the different securities products side, or you could do M&A, which is definitely very different. Then you could go, let's say, private equity, so that's another field. You could do hedge fund related type of role, so more perhaps on the quantitative side, become a portfolio manager. What else? Forgetting. Well, also as a finance major, you could even think about accounting as well. I've seen a lot of accounting major, then maybe switching to finance. That's pretty common, because obviously in the finance field, investment banking, and even a little bit of, well, obviously capital markets, you definitely need to have a basic understanding of accounting principles. So.
Okay, if there's no other answers, then we will answer actually one from our RSVP form. How do you successfully gain good internship opportunities or network?
I think there are all sorts of ways. Usually it's a little bit harder to get that opportunity in high school unless you maybe have like a personal or, family or school connection in some way. Meaningful internships aren't as common in high school, at least within the finance field, but it's definitely possible. I was fortunate enough to have one in high school that definitely gave me a really good insight into the culture in a field I was interested in, but that was not something that I would know how to recommend pursuing. I think in college, your schools will do a really, really good job of guiding you through that process, because as I before, it really differs year to year and also school by school. I know my school has a program that will either our business school, honestly, I have a job and they blast me with internship and job opportunities, which is great. I need to figure out how to turn them off, but it's really great. Also, a lot of programs like Girls Who Invest exist that will, educate you, but also connect you to an internship. And on top of that, there are career centers at your school. If you seek them out yourselves, they exist. Looking on when you're in college, you'll probably have access to Handshake, which is kind of like LinkedIn or LinkedIn as well. Those resources are out there too. And so I would say that a lot of things will come to you, but you have the opportunity to seek a few options out as well.
I will also say, you don't have to start that early. I would encourage you to go study abroad, work at a startup, work at a nonprofit your first couple of summers in college, because while yes, having a finance internship early will help you step up to whatever other finance internships you want. I really don't think that it matters that much having one. Yes, it gives you experience and stuff, but also have fun, explore, don't stress about it too early. So yeah, that's just the advice I would give myself.
My history study abroad is the favorite thing I've done in college. Highly, highly recommend. Yeah, I think it really matters more going into your senior year of college, that the summer right before your senior year is kind of okay, this is go time. But before that, definitely do what will make you happy, and having a more diversified experience makes you more interesting too as a candidate. They're going to go through a million finance degrees and a million people who are I just love finance. You can be a whole person, and if you love finance, that's great, but you don't have to love everything about it and only focus on it.
Great, thank you so much, guys. And we have another live question from Lauren, which is kind of relates to classes, but what's your favorite finance or business class that you've taken in college?
So I'm a bit biased, but I definitely enjoy the M&A class. So yeah, kind of that opened my eyes into that field overall, and I thought, okay, I really want to be in M&A because it sounds really cool. So yeah, that was my favorite class.
I would say my favorite class was a healthcare law and policy class. I took it starting last semester, so January of 2021. And that's how I actually decided like I want to apply to law school, because like out of all the classes I'd ever taken at McCombs, which is the business school, like it was my favorite. So I kind of let my classes guide my interests and like where I want to see my career. And I'd encourage you all to do the same too.
Mine was a management class, actually, not even within my finance major, but one I really liked my teacher, which has a big impact. But I thought it was really cool learning about corporate structures and kind of incentive structures too. So that's something that, it's going to apply all over the place, but it was just fun for me. I thought it was an interesting class.
Great, thank you so much, guys. Lauren, do you have anything to add?
My classes are definitely mostly neuroscience related. The business classes that I've taken for my minor are pretty standard, like accounting, corporate finance. They've all been great. I've had great professors. I wouldn't say any stand out as being super interesting. I think the classes that everyone before me has mentioned are definitely more specific to a business school curriculum, which if that's something that you're interested in finance, I would maybe consider looking into a school that has a more specific business major or finance program, which Northwestern does not. But again, have loved my classes as well. Just a different approach for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone. And one more question I got privately was not really related to business or finance. It was how did you guys choose your colleges, and why did you go, or why are you going to your college?
For me, that kind of stems off of what I was just saying. Northwestern's on the quarter system, so it has its pros and cons. Our timing is different than all of my friends from high school. But I get to take a lot more classes because you're taking 3 sets of classes instead of 2 every year. And because I wasn't sure specifically what I wanted to do between healthcare and finance, I knew I wanted to take a lot of classes stemming from a broad range. I took a lot of econ classes my freshman year, as well as the neuroscience and the business. And I took some Spanish classes. So I've kind of been all over the place and have loved the ability to explore different career opportunities, which was something that I felt Northwestern offered. I also am from Texas and wanted to explore a new location, so applied to a lot of schools out of state, and have loved being in Chicago, and then working in New York has really diversified my perspectives and allowed me to explore and meet a lot of people from a ton of different places, which has been great.
Yeah, my college decision was really, really tough for me, frankly. The school at SMU in Dallas is actually not, it was a school that I applied to just because we did a class trip, a visit. So I grew up in Connecticut, but finished out high school in Texas. My family moved down here. And so at the end of my decision, I was between a school on the West Coast and a school on the East Coast, as well as a school I ended up in that both had objectively like much better known finance. I wouldn't say better known, but probably objectively higher ranked finance programs, but didn't feel necessarily like a fit. There was one school that socially really intimidated me. Turns out my school is probably equally like intense in some of those ways. And yeah, I love it. I think that a good thing, you're going to have a gut feeling at the end of the day about this is a place that feels like a really scary move and maybe a little out of my comfort zone, but also a place where you can grow. I think balancing where you see growth, but also where you see having enough comfort to go after it is important. And I love being a 3-hour drive for my family. That's something that has logistically made my life so much easier, but also that's something that's, really important to me. So I'm very happy with my decision, although it was super tough. I have 2 sisters and they both also had a really tough time choosing where to go to college. So it's definitely, it's a tough process, but at the end of the day, it all turns out really well.
I only applied to one school, and that I think it was because like for me, I grew up with like 3 siblings, and so like my parents had to put all of us through college, and UT just made the most financial sense because like in-state tuition's like 10,000 a year compared to like if I were to go out of state, 60 to 70 to 80K. So yeah, it just made the most financial sense, and also UT's business school is ranked really well. So I knew I would do well there. I mean, had I lived in like the middle of nowhere, I probably would have applied out of state. But UT was like really good school.
Okay, if that's all the answers, then thank you so much, everyone. And thank you everyone for all of your questions. It looks like we're nearing the end of our event time and we can conclude our discussion and Q&A. I will pass it back to Angelica to wrap it up.
Great. Wait, so before we put the presentation back up, we actually wanted to take a quick Zoom group picture